Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
President Trump just turned a so-called vanity project into an America First national security priority. Now, even some of his critics are being forced to admit he was right. After the terrifying violence at the White House Correspondents Dinner, the question is no longer why Trump wants a secure White House ballroom. The question is why anyone would try to stop it. Trump says the current setup left the line of succession exposed. Speaker Mike Johnson agrees. Karoline Leavitt says it's critical. And John Fetterman, even he is now saying build it. So who's still blocking this? Now, this matters to every American because this is not about decorating the White House. This is about whether the president, vice president, cabinet, and congressional leadership can gather in one hardened, secure location without being exposed to hotel rooms, overhead, weak access points, and the kind of confusion we all just witnessed. President Trump revealed the venue was not secure and said the military and Secret Service are demanding a ballroom with protection built for modern threats, including drone proofing, bullet resistance features. Mike Johnson added that the planned facility would include 7-inch thick glass and sit inside the most secure compound in the world. See, that means fewer vulnerabilities, faster control, and safer events when America's leadership is together. And politically, this is devastating for the anti-Trump crowd. What they mocked as excess now looks like preparedness. What they tried to sneer at now looks like common sense. And the left, they spent years attacking Trump's instincts, and once again, events proved he was seeing danger before the establishment did. And while we're talking about national security threats, there's another Trump move every patriot needs to have on their radar tonight. This breaking news from the White House: they just announced over $30 billion to secure America's critical mineral supply chains and named a specific Alaskan project as a key strategic asset for U.S. mineral independence. I've been to the Vizsla copper drilling site in Canada myself. I've seen it with my own eyes, and what's happening right now is bigger than most people realize. President Trump just unveiled Project Vault, a $12 billion strategic minerals reserve designed to stockpile essential resources and keep America strong, supplied, and independent from hostile foreign powers. Now, Vizsla Copper is drawing serious attention as this push accelerates, and if you want to understand the opportunity here, check the exclusive briefing. It's only for Next News viewers. It's linked below. Remember, Vizsla Copper trades in the U.S. under VCUFF and in Canada as VCU.V. Do your homework. Do it right away. Now back to the story. The corporate media still does not want to frame honestly. And here's the part that changes everything. Trump says he didn't rush out immediately because he wanted to see what was happening. Think about that. In the middle of the chaos, the president was personally trying to assess the threat while Secret Service moved to get him out. That tells you just how exposed and improvised this environment was. It was not a controlled, secure White House setting. It was a warning shot to the entire country that the old way of doing events is no longer acceptable. Here's a post. U.S. Senator John Fetterman: we were there front and center. That venue wasn't built to accommodate an event with the line of secession for the U.S. government. After witnessing last night, drop the TDS and build the White House ballroom for events exactly like these. And he put a headline from Mediaite: I was inside the Washington Hilton tonight. The security was downright awful. So even Fetterman had to admit the venue was wrong for an event this sensitive. Now Trump explains what he says the media won't. The building was not secure, and the military is demanding a White House ballroom. Here's President Trump just an hour or so after the assassination attempt in the White House briefing room.
All of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, it's not a particularly secure building. And I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it. They've wanted the ballroom for 150 years for lots of different reasons, but today's a little bit different because today we need levels of security that probably nobody's ever seen before. But everyone owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to the courage of law enforcement, the law enforcement, and working with the D.C. police, and just spoke with the mayor. And when we're finished, when
we're finished, let's just hope we can finish the ballroom. They're just putting roadblocks in front of him. That's all it is. He'll get it done. You saw Trump laying out the security case in plain English. Now he turns the pressure and says Democrats trying to block the ballroom. Trump erupting says if we had a new ballroom, which Dems are trying to block, he'd have a secure facility to hold events and not possibly get shot at. Drop the lawsuit.
all of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, you know.
So President Trump reveals the building was not secure, and he needs to surge renovations at the White House. Not just talk, Trump is making the case. Here's a really cool video I found. I want to share it with you guys. It gives you the whole story of all the different renovations at the White House over many, many years. How cool is that? Such a cool animation. I don't know who made that, but that's the evolution of the White House from the beginning through the great, big, beautiful ballroom. Okay, oh no, this is actually a post that President Trump made on Truth Social. My bad. Trump actually made that post. So it gives the viewers the full picture of what Trump wants built. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson backs him up. Gets specific about the safety features, including the 7-inch thick glass.
They've incited violence, in my view. I mean, you have some of the most prominent figures in the House and the Senate on the Democrat side effectively, calling for war. I mean, they use those kinds of metaphors, and it incites violence because there are crazy people in society, and they get radicalized online. And so we've got to recognize that it's time to turn down the rhetoric. We've been saying this over and over, and not use that kind of language. I hope that this will be a sobering reminder for everybody about that very important cause. I'm grateful to Fetterman. He's right. The ballroom will be a solution for this because it'll be on the most secure compound in the world. It won't have hotel rooms above it, and it'll have 7-inch thick glass, for example, on the windows. So it'll be a very safe environment to do events like this. We need a place. We have needed a place like that, and the president keeps pointing it out.
Speaker Mike Johnson says the ballroom is real security, not vanity. Here's Fetterman. Here's more from Fetterman, revealing he initially had no clue why Trump was trying to build the ballroom. Now he does and supports it.
Really had a strong opinion on the ballroom, to be honest, but this clearly demonstrated you know how difficult it is to move around there, and you know that the ballroom is effectively underground, and it has very limited kinds of ingress and regress to get out. Egress. So I think from an evacuation, and when you have to evacuate, whether the president or other parts of the leadership, I mean, this is just not the right place for that. And I do hope they talked about to reschedule it. I just hope it's the kinds of security that they don't have the entire chain of succession after all of that, given what could have happened. And I think the shooter was actually bragging about how we have so lax security. We have a lot of flaws there. Can you imagine? Remind people too, the DHS was still shut down for that, and now we're actively in conflict with Iran. And if there was sleeper cells, part of it, they would have had months to prepare for this kind of a thing. So for me, I just walked away from that still kind of stunned how lucky we were that no one was seriously hurt. And when we have the significant majority of our leadership right there in just a very, very small clustered area, they could have been much more catastrophic here for our nation that day.
There's one Democrat with some common sense saying the chaos on site changed his mind fast. Now Trump gives firsthand account of those tense seconds and reveals why Secret Service had trouble moving him out. Here he is on 60 Minutes.
You see the security moving quickly, right, within seconds, grabbing the vice president by his coat, lifting him up, bringing him out. Then the counter assault comes in. Took 10 seconds for them to flank you, Mr. President, and then 20 seconds to get you out. It looked chaotic. At one point, you were down. What was happening?
Well, what happened is it was a little bit me. I wanted to see what was happening, and I wasn't making it that easy for him. I wanted to see what was going on. And by that time, we started to realize maybe it was a bad problem, different kind of a problem, bad one, and different than what would be normal noise from a ballroom, which you hear all the time. And I was surrounded by great people, and I probably made them act a little bit more slowly. I said, wait a minute, let me see, wait a minute. So, I'm telling guys.
Just at that moment where it looks like you go sort of down with the service, you were telling them to wait?
Well, no, what happened is then I started walking with them. I started walking, and they said, please go down on the floor. So I went down, and First Lady went down also, but we were asked to go down by the agents as I was walking. In other words,
they wanted you almost to crawl.
I was standing up, pretty much. I was standing up and then turned around the opposite direction and started pretty much walking out, pretty tall, a little bent over because I'm not looking to be standing too tall, and but I was walking out. It was about halfway there, and they said, please go down to the floor, please go down to the floor. So I dropped to the floor, so did the First Lady.
It makes sense now. If you guys have been following me on X, I watched some of the footage immediately after the event, and I watched it, and I counted the seconds, and I noticed that they took Vance, and as soon as they took Vance, it took them 20 seconds to get Trump out of that room. It took them 10 seconds to get from Vance to Trump. And I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would it take that long? A lot can happen in 10 seconds, even more in 20 seconds. So now President Trump making it very clear, answering the question. Now, I wasn't saying there was a security failure. I was wondering, what kind of protocol is this? And that the only thing I can think of now, and with President Trump remarks, it was President Trump delaying them. I mean, President Trump's the only one who can override Secret Service protocol in a moment. I mean, he's personally done that for me. He did that for me in 2019 in Milwaukee during a photograph with my wife when she couldn't get into the picture because she was left off a photo card. And I asked the president, first I asked Secret Service, and they said, no, she can't get in the picture. So when I walked up to the president after everybody's talking and shaking hands and kissing babies, all that stuff going on, and I asked him, sir, my wife, and he said, go get your wife. Secret Service went and got my wife, even after Secret Service told me no. So it all comes together. It all makes perfect sense now why it took 20 seconds from Vance to Trump to get out of that room. Amazing. It tells you just how close it got and how Trump handled it in real time. Now Karoline Leavitt drives it home from the White House. The ballroom is critical for national security. Here she is in the press briefing today.
Unfortunately, we don't have a room big enough here at the White House, which is another point to be made, and the president is absolutely right. It's why the White House Ballroom project is not just a fun project for President Trump, like you will read in the media, it is actually critical for our national security that a larger, secure building on this complex, which is the most secure complex in the world, is built to accommodate not only large amounts of guests, but also the president, the vice president, members of the cabinet. The line of succession in this country should be able to gather freely in safety without the fear of threats or political violence. And the White House ballroom will provide that. And so it's critical that we get this project done as quickly as possible.
Karoline Leavitt laying it out. Shutting down the usual media spin, calling the project essential. And now we have the acting Attorney General Todd Blanchard boiling it down in 4 words. It is time to build the ballroom. Putting out this memo, U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Attorney General, sending it to Craig, National Trust for Historic Preservation and National Park Service. Last night there was another attempt on President Trump's life. This time the shooter targeted President Trump at the Washington Hilton, the only ballroom in D.C. suitable for hosting large gatherings for the president, where another shooter targeted President Reagan 45 years ago. As history proves, that venue is demonstrably unsafe for the President of the United States because of its size, presents extraordinary security challenges for Secret Service. Yesterday's assassination attempt on President Trump proves yet again that the White House ballroom is essential for safety and security of the President, his family, his cabinet, and his staff. When the White House ballroom is complete, President Trump and his successors will no longer need to venture beyond the safety of the White House perimeter to attend large gatherings at the Washington Hilton ballroom. Making it clear. Now here comes the blockade. Still, a new group won't end its lawsuit to halt Trump's ballroom. The National Trust for Historic Preservation said the case rests on questions of executive authority, not national security. The president must follow the law, the group's lawyer wrote in a letter shared with the Post. Group won't end ballroom lawsuit amid calls for construction to move forward. The National Trust for Historic Preservation said that it would continue its legal challenge to President Donald Trump's planned White House ballroom after the Justice Department called for the group to drop its lawsuit following the weekend shooting at the White House Correspondents Dinner. They won't stop. They will not stop. Unbelievable. So the big reveal is this. The ballroom fight is really a fight between reality and ideology. Reality says the threat environment has changed. Reality says the line of secession needs a secure gathering place on White House grounds. Reality says Trump is building for the world as it is, not the fantasy world the media prefers. Even Fetterman admitted the event showed how hard it is to move people safely and evacuate leadership quickly. Karoline Leavitt called the project critical. Todd Blanchard said it plainly, it's time to build the ballroom, but the establishment still wants process games and lawsuits. That tells you everything. They would rather obstruct Trump than fix an obvious security weakness. President Trump is protecting the presidency itself, and his enemies are still trying to stop the walls from going up. So here's the bottom line. President Trump was right again. The ballroom's not a side project. It's a security upgrade for the presidency, for the continuity of government, and for the safety of the American people whose leaders may need to gather under threat. After what happened, blocking this project looks reckless. The White House needs that hardened facility, and it needs it fast. If you agree, share this video everywhere because the legacy media will do everything they can to bury the obvious. And drop your comment below. Answer this yes or no question. Should every lawsuit against the White House ballroom be dropped immediately? If you want to beat the algorithm and get alerts YouTube never sends, text raw feed to the number on your screen, 844-840-4963 for direct updates to your phone from yours truly. And check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. I'm standing with President Trump with security and with America first, so let's build it. Let's move forward.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.